This is Biology 2, Chapter 3 on communities, biomes, and ecosystems. In Part 3 of the video lecture, we will be taking a tour through the different aquatic or water-based biomes on planet Earth. Water is a very important molecule because of the biological communities that water supports. Basically, our distribution of water on the planet, the majority of the water is locked up in the oceans, is saline or salt-filled. And out of the remaining 3% of fresh water that is on the planet, the majority of that is locked up in ice and groundwater. So we can have our fresh water biological communities of rivers and lakes and swamps and those varieties. We'll start discussing freshwater ecosystems. Again, only about 2% of Earth's total water supply is freshwater, and most of that is locked up in glaciers. But the liquid parts of the freshwater ecosystems is what we'll be discussing in this section. For rivers and streams, the beginning of a stream or river can be called the headwaters or the source of the river. The ending of the stream or river is often called the mouth. From headwaters to mouth, there is a lot of changes in the characteristics of the river itself, the physical characteristics, and the biological characteristics as well. So we'll take a look at kind of dissecting, if you will, the beginning and the end of a river. At the headwaters, water tends to be faster moving. The temperature of the water itself tends to be a little bit colder, and water at the headwaters holds more oxygen. Then as the river travels on, it becomes slower moving, the temperatures warm up, and there's less oxygen by the time you get to the mouth of the river. At the headwaters, species that will live in fast water tend to be larger fish, such as the salmon. Species that live in slower water tend to be smaller fish, like trout. We also have some of the bottom feeders of the eels, crabs, and worms in slower water. For lakes, there are different zones of the lake. And depending on what zone you're in, there can be different characteristics of life there. The littoral zone, that's the area that's closest to the shoreline. In general, that's a lot of where the action is in a lake. For plants that live around the littoral zone, you'll get a lot of algae, that green pond scum that you often see, rooted and floated aquatic plants, such as lily pads and the like. And you'll get your snails, insects, different crustaceans that live there, crayfish, those types of critters. Those provide food for a lot of other life in the lake, such as birds, different types of waterfowl like ducks, different types of reptiles like lizards and snakes. Amphibians, of course, live in the littoral zone since they need to be both on land and water. So this is a very biologically active place, is the littoral zone. Once you get into the open water of the lake, we call that the limnetic zone. The limnetic zone is dominated by what we call plankton. Plankton comes from a Latin word meaning drifter. So plankton is free-floating. There's a lot of photosynthetic types of plankton that are autotrophs. And because the limnetic zone is dominated by plankton, lots of fish and other animals live on the plankton, and then other larger fish and larger animals live on the plankton eaters. Lots of fast-swimming species of fish also live in the open waters. The deep areas of the lake with very little light is what we call the profundal zone. This is where you see a lot of the bottom-dwelling fish like carp. You'll get a lot of your crayfish and crabs and clams, worms. Those types of bottom-dwelling organisms live where there's very little light in the profundal zone. Nutrient-poor lakes with very few plant and animal species are termed oligotrophic. Troph, remember, means energy in Latin, and oligo is kind of a word meaning fluctuating. Nutrient-rich lakes, on the other hand, are termed eutrophic. Remember, the prefix EU in Latin means true. So there's lots of different plant and animal species in nutrient-rich lakes. There can be nutrient-rich lakes that are next to nutrient-poor lakes in the same general region. It all depends on what types of biological communities are around these lakes and ponds, and what types of resources are near these lakes and ponds. Transitional aquatic ecosystems. This is the place where we have the freshwater communities kind of commingling with the saltwater communities. So this is a place where you'll get a little bit of both, a little bit of freshwater and a little bit of saltwater that intermingle. Wetlands are a type of transitional aquatic ecosystem. They are called wetlands because they're saturated with water. We can have different types of wetlands, swamps, which tend to be very moist and have standing water, whereas bogs and marshes have more of a kind of wet season for the wetlands, so they're not underwater all of the time. Different types of trees that live in wetlands have to be able to deal with varying levels of salt because you're going to get that fresh water mixed with salt water. So they have to be able to tolerate a little bit of salt with their fresh water. We can also get different types of trees like the tamarack and the black spruce. Animals that live in the wetlands also have to deal with a little bit of salt in their fresh water. Lots of different types of reptiles live in and around wetlands. Alligators in particular in this portion of the world. Lots of different types of waterfowl, ducks, herons. We can also have our kind of wetland mammals of the raccoons and the mink. Estuaries are an area right at generally the mouth of the river, the end of a river, where that portion meets with the saltwater ocean. So estuaries are ecosystems where a freshwater stream meets the saltwater ocean. Again, lots of the algae is for the producers of the community. Seaweeds and marsh grasses, again, they have to deal with varying levels of salinity or salt. In estuaries, we get lots of worms and oysters and clams around the edges of the mouth of the river. Lots of waterfowl use estuaries for nesting sites at particular times of the year as well. Marine ecosystems. These will be exclusively saltwater. Marine ecosystems have a very significant impact on the planet. In Chapter 2, we talked about the different biogeochemical cycles. The ocean is a reservoir for a lot of the chemical cycles that take place on the planet. And it is important that those biogeochemical cycles keep on cycling and that marine ecosystems can keep giving back those elements to the environment. Near the ocean, near the shore, we can have different zones. The intertidal zone is the narrow band of water where the ocean meets the land. The biological communities here have to deal with changing of high and low tides. If you remember talking in 9th grade science, we talked about the tide cycle. High tide, low tide happens twice a day approximately for a few hours apiece. And so the animals here have to deal with that incoming and outgoing of water. In the low tide area, we have lots of invertebrate animals, the crayfish and the like. We also have some fish and seaweed that live there too. In the mid-tide area, you'll get some hangers-on that can deal with a little bit more of the pull of the tide. Crabs, snails, starfish, small fish will also live in the mid-tide zone. And the high tide zone, where the area where the water will reach its highest level, you'll get a lot of algae as well as mollusks like snails and types of animals like that. The beach area, of course, is very similar to the littoral zone of a lake. Lots of action happens here. We have lots of different types of worms, clams, predatory crustaceans, crabs, and lots of different types of shorebirds that eat all of the worms and the clams and the crustaceans and crabs. Open ocean ecosystems. Out in the big wide ocean where there's going to be no shoreline, the photic zone is the area of water where sunlight can penetrate. It goes averagely about 200 meters down. So anything that lives here is going to rely on sunlight, either directly or indirectly, for a food source. So all of the autotrophs, all of the photoplankton will live in the photic zone. So lots of seaweeds as well. Many species of fish and whales, dolphins, live in the photic zone because they eat the plankton eaters. If you go down far enough, there is very little light down at the in the bottom parts of the ocean. The aphotic zone. Remember, a or an in front of a science word means no or without. So this is an area of open ocean where sunlight cannot penetrate. There is very little light down here. So there's no photoautotrophs because there's no sunlight. However, there are things that do live down there. We have lots of large species of fish. Several different types of sharks live in the aphotic zone. Animals that live here have adapted to a very, very minimal amount of light. They tend to have very large, glassy eyes. They tend to be colored red to blend in with the background, which seems odd, but some species of fish are able to see in different wavelengths from the electromagnetic spectrum. And as far as the bottom parts of the ocean are concerned, red is the new black. At the very, very bottom, we have the benthic zone. So this is the area along the ocean floor that consists of basically a lot of sediment and piled up dead organisms. We talked last year about the hydrothermal vent communities, those black or white smokers. That do have some communities that live there and that strive because of that hydrothermal vent. So bacteria, tube worms, clams, and shrimp. Shallower benthic zones, we can get a lot of types of sea fungus and spores. Sea anemones like to live in the benthic zone, as well as some fish and echinoderms or starfish as well. The abyssal zone is the very deepest regions of the ocean. These can also contain hydrothermal vent communities. In the abyssal zone, you're basically waiting for your next meal as an animal that lives down there. Most food sources come from death of organisms above, and the term for that is marine snow. So it's kind of a smattering of fleshy bits that were consumed up above and that float down to the bottom. There is life down in the abyssal zone, jellyfish, small species of fish, a few species of large fish and sharks as well. Coastal oceans and coral reefs. This is like the tropical rainforest of the ocean communities. It's very highly diverse with a lot of different species. And just like the tropical rainforest, we can have a lot of aquatic species being very specialized. Coral reefs are dominated by coral. Coral is an animal. It's formed a symbiotic relationship with algae. And so the algae photosynthesizes, provides a little bit of food for the coral, and the coral provides shelter for that algae. In coral reefs, we can get lots of different critters, sea slugs, urchins, octopi, starfish, and fish. It is the virtual cornucopia of animals. This has been Chapter 3,